So I thought it would be great to complete this series on mushroom heroes with a special section about beta-glucans. You'll have heard me mention these often, maitake, for example, shaga, they contain lots of beta-glucans. What are these? Well, the word glucans comes from the fact that it's a sugar-like, glucose-like content. But these compounds, the chemicals, don't get dissolved and digested in the way that, say, glucose or sugars do. No, it's more absorbed as a nutrient in its own right. And beta-glucans are capable of all sorts of good things. They're mostly recognized in orthodox medicine for their benefits for heart health. They're very good at lowering the bad cholesterol and improving triglycerides as well, which are not cholesterol, but they're pretty bad for you. And improving the protective high-density HDL cholesterol. In other words, the FDA actually thoroughly approves that, and you can make claims about heart health, providing your product has about 3 grams per day of beta-glucans in it. And it's good for blood pressure and arterial health in general. And particularly good for cognition and mental processes, since we're very dependent on the blood supply to our brain. So anything that improves heart health and arterial strength, blood flow, is very good for the brain, okay? But the really wonderful thing about beta-glucans is not that so much. That doesn't excite me nearly as much as the improvements in immune parameters. More natural killer cells to knock off cancer, more lymphocytes for T cells for producing antibodies. It's just generally all around good, and that's one of the reasons. It's not just protective against infectious diseases, but also very good potentially with cancer. I mentioned through a couple of those videos, like for example, PSK from the Turkey Tail, Lentinan, which is from Shiitake mushroom. These are actually used in oncology circles in the Far East, China, Korea, Japan. Of course, they're never even mentioned, not even whispered in hushed tones in America or anywhere so radically and abusively anti-nature as the idiot doctors and oncologists in this territory. But they are very good. Now, I've got to say, to be fair to American doctors, the Japanese haven't thrown over chemotherapy and things. But they find if you add a strong immune modulator to that, then the fight gets even more one-sided against the cancer, that you've got immune cells in there as well, knocking off cancer cells, as well as just trying to poison them. Chemo is trying to poison the cancer cells without poisoning the patient, isn't it? Sometimes quite unsuccessfully, the patient does get poisoned. But anyway, that's the main use of beta-glucans. Now, you can get beta-glucans from all kinds of sources, rye and oats, butter barley. Oats are very popular sources, especially for the large dose amounts. If you're looking for 3 grams a day, just taking 2 or 3 drops of my hero mix is not enough for that. But they're also available from bacteria, yeasts, and I've got to say, I don't myself rate yeast beta-glucans as high as the mushroom ones. See, the yeast, when you look at products and people are selling beta-glucans from yeast, they're cheaper to produce, easier to get hold of, and they charge the same money and then claim the same science, and I don't think that's really fair on the customer. The science for yeast beta-glucans is not as strong as the science for mushroom beta-glucans. Anyway, you pay your money and takes your choice. I'm just saying there are a number of places you can get it from. Anyway, if you're taking larger quantities, such as from barley and oats, you can get quite significant amounts in your stomach. And that does help to control blood sugar, because it forms a kind of paste in the intestines that's very absorbent and holds back sugar and things that you really don't want to be digesting too much of. So it's very good at keeping down blood glucose or making the balance of blood, which includes things like insulin sensitivity. It's a whole thing called metabolic syndrome. It used to be called Syndrome X, but it means, being overweight, having blood pressure, having lousy blood fats, and frankly, being at significant risk for heart attack and stroke. So it's great that it can help with that. So all round, beta-glucans are jolly good fellows. They're on our side. Mushroom beta-glucans particularly, but it's available from other sources, as I say. And of course, there are beta-glucans in my 6 Heroes mix. That's what they're doing in there. That's what they're good at. They produce beta-glucans, which are terrific health heroes. Okay, just thought I'd add this sort of generalized comment about beta-glucans in with a series of videos about my 6 Heroes. Take care.